Yeah, you can go ahead, Maitreyi. When I say
Yes, sir.
I will share the screen, then you can go off and I can put my slide. Is it okay?
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Sure, sir.
Okay, you can start.
Yes, sir. Here is a patient of 53-year-old. He was coming to history of presenting illness. Patient was apparently all right 14 months back, after which he started developing difficulty in walking in the form of unsteadiness and swaying towards both sides. That is, his symptoms were on day 0, difficulty in walking, which is insidious onset, gradually progressed to a state where the patient found difficulty to stand with both feet together. He also had difficulty in turning sideways more towards right side. Due to unsteadiness and fear of fall, patient started standing with legs wide apart. There is history of difficulty worsened on walking through the narrow passages. Currently, he walks with the help of a walking stick, taking small steps, slow steps. There
Okay,
is no
now,
history of worsening symptoms in the dark or
yeah, your voice is not very clear. I think you must come a little closer to your mic. Now, let us start with this
yes, sir.
first line. 56-year-old, right? 42-year-old. How old is he?
Yes, sir.
How old
56,
is he?
sir. 53-year-old, sir.
53-year-old.
53, sir.
Yeah.
53.
The whole history is about 14 months duration. The first symptom was difficulty in walking. As you know, my approach is not complete headlines on the first slide, which will give us a clue for the diagnosis. So the idea of teaching is to know what you should do at that stage, not when the whole history and whole disease has unraveled itself to the full speed. So we would like to start with the very first symptom. Suppose you had seen this patient 14 months ago, when he came to you for history of difficulty in walking, how do you proceed further? Now, can you see the slide?
Yes, sir.
All of you? Okay. So the first step is difficulty in walking. So the first step is to know what is the identify which of the above is responsible for the difficulty in walking after ruling out non-neurological conditions. That means that there is no non-neurological like pain or osteoarthritis and all that. Once you say it is a neurological problem, the patient has come for difficulty in walking. It should be one of the four. It is not anything more than this. Is it due to motor weakness? Is it due to stiffness of limbs due to spasticity or rigidity or occasionally myotonia? Or is it due to incoordination? If none of them are there, still the patient has a subjective symptom of imbalance in walking, then it is called as a phobic disorder. What do you think in this patient? Difficulty in walking due to with that first few lines of your history.
Sir, he had difficulty in turning to sideways and also um, an ataxic. It is like more like ataxic, sir. So cerebellar incoordination.
Right. So you said first line difficulty in walking, and then immediately you said in the form of unsteadiness and swaying. So that
Yes, sir.
means we have already made a diagnosis. His difficulty in walking is due to incoordination, imbalance.
Yes, sir.
Now
Yes, sir.
you have to further get into the problem whether it is ataxia due to cerebellar problem, sensory ataxia, or a vestibular ataxia.
Yes,
So
sir.
you have said his difficulty in walking is due to imbalance. Now, any clue which of the three is responsible? So ataxia is either vestibular, sensory, or cerebellar, again psychogenic. And these are the differentiating features of gait ataxia, which I covered it in one of my talks. Now,
Yes, sir.
let me know which one do you think is the problem and why.
Sir, it is most likely cerebellar ataxia, sir, because the associated symptoms are not there, which are suggestive of sensory and vestibular, and the associated symptoms are suggestive of cerebellar. It is
Like what?
cerebellar ataxia, sir.
Like what are the associated symptoms at that stage?
At that stage, he don't have any sensory symptoms, sir. So we can rule out sensory ataxia,
No,
and there
no,
is no
no, no,
other.
no. See, whenever you are asked to say why the diagnosis, you must tell points in favor of diagnosis, not
Yes, sir.
negative points. It is not there doesn't mean it is there. You understand?
Yes,
Because
yes, sir.
sensory
Yes,
symptom is not there. We are just examining the patient 1 month into his illness. We still
yes, sir.
don't know what is going to happen. So at that point of time, is there any point for you to say, okay, can I ask you why it is not vestibular ataxia?
Sir, he's not having any vertigo or he's not having any associated symptoms, sir. Vestibular ataxia. So
Okay, so for vestibular ataxia, there must be definite symptoms of true vertigo, vomiting, sweating, and if it is a brainstem involvement,
yes, sir.
vestibular nucleus, there will be something. So vestibular, definitely we can rule out whether it is cerebellar or sensory. For example, you have written that progressed gradually, both feet together, he found difficulty to stand. Now,
Yes, sir.
does it mean sensory ataxia or cerebellar ataxia?
It is a cerebellar ataxia, sir.
Why in sensory ataxia you think they can, for example, in sensory, how do you do Romberg
Yes, sir.
sign? How do you elicit a Romberg
Sir,
sign?
we have to ask the patient to open his eyes and stand, and next again we have to do with closing eyes, sir. If with closing eyes patient falls, then it is sensory ataxia.
No. So in sensory, when the Rombergs is there, you ask the patient to keep the feet wide or it is closed. In Rombergs, how do you test? The feet should be closed together.
In sensory ataxia, Rombergs, we have to ask for feet closer, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So here also he has got difficulty to stand with both the feet together. You have written. So why can't
Yes,
it be
sir.
sensory ataxia? Isn't it? See,
Yes, sir.
the problem in case presentation is when you have know the diagnosis at the end, your mind gets blank. You are no more ready to analyze the case without knowing the diagnosis. So here you have said the patient cannot stand with feet together, which happens in any type of ataxia. It happens in cerebellar as well as it happens in sensory. The difference is in sensory, they are more stable with eyes open, even though the feet are closed, and they become very unstable after closure of the eyes. Whereas in cerebellar, they are unsteady even with eyes open. They may be slightly unsteady, more unsteady with eyes closed. So that is the difference. Cerebellar more unsteady both ways. Sensory more
Yes, sir.
unsteady with eyes closed. But otherwise, both of them would like to keep the feet apart while walking in any type of ataxia. Now,
Yes.
another point you said is difficulty in turning sideways more towards right side. What happens? Right side means?
I mean, if when he's turning sideways, it is like more difficult to turn right side distance. He's not able to.
If it is something like lateralized to one side, it is possible that it is a cerebellar because sensory
Yes,
ataxia is not lateralized. So suppose we use that point, it can be cerebellar. The last line you have said, no history of worsening in the dark or on closing the eyes, no wash basing phenomena.
Yes,
So
sir.
what does that mean?
Sir, it means patient is not having any sensory ataxia, sir.
Right. So that is an important point. So from your first slide, at that stage, 14 months ago, he has come to you with history of difficulty in walking, and he says it is an imbalance, and you have analyzed from the history that it is not vestibular, and you have also said because there is no wash basin phenomena and all those things, probably it is a cerebellar ataxia. Am I right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, now you take over. You present your slide.
2 months later, patient gave history of slowness of the gait and while walking and other activities, which is insidious in onset, gradually progressive over 1 year.
No,
There is a difficulty in doing.
what is this slowness of gait is due to what?
Sir, he's taking very short steps. He's telling, sir, he is having that fear of fall, and because of that ataxia, he's feeling more unstable. That is the reason he's taking slowness and
So,
slowness of gait. He told us.
slowness does not mean short steps. Because the patient is already ataxic, his gait has become slow, that's all.
Yes, sir.
Doesn't mean anything specific. Already the
Yes, sir.
patient has a gait imbalance, so he cannot run fast or he cannot even walk fast with a gait imbalance. Even if it is cerebellar also or sensory also, it does not matter. So the patient has slowed down in his gait because the ataxia is the problem. You understand?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So if you go to the, now that pubs are all open, if you go on Saturday evening at 10 o'clock and stand in front of the pub, you can see how people are ataxic and walk slowly. They cannot walk fast towards their vehicle. So slowness does
Yes.
not mean anything specific. It only says gait is ataxic and so is walking slow. Okay, then.
Yes, sir. Then he started having difficulty in doing his daily activities like brushing, eating, food, drinking, dressing, undressing. He's a farmer by occupation. Working in the farm also, he's taking the help of another person since 7 to 8 months.
1 second. What is the difficulty due to? See, whenever
Sir,
a person has a problem, difficulty in walking. So we said, what is the
Yes, sir.
cause of difficulty in walking? Upper motor neuron,
Yes, sir.
lower motor neuron, ataxia, like that. Now, what is the difficulty in brushing and eating food and all that?
Sir, mainly he's telling that he's having that fear of fall to go to washroom also. So that is the reason he's like not able to do his tellings.
No, that I can understand. What about these things? Upper limb. These are all upper limb problems.
Yes, sir.
Why is he unable to function in the upper limb? Up till now, we were talking about the gait. Now,
Yes, sir.
from this history, 2 months after the onset of illness, his upper limbs are affected now. Now,
Yes,
this
sir.
upper limbs is not able to do activities because of what? Did you ask him why you are not able to brush? Why you are not able to mix the food and eat?
He's telling, he told me that it is like automatically slowness started in all my activities. That's what he told me, sir. In all his daily activities, it started like that. He told.
So, what do I expect from your first slide? The patient
Yes,
has
sir.
probably cerebellar gait ataxia. So I expect
sir.
that upper limb, all these difficulties are due to cerebellar involvement of the upper limb coordination. Cerebellum
Yes,
is
sir.
involved in the coordination. So he is not
Yes,
able
sir.
to brush or eat food because of incoordination in the upper limb. Whether it is overshooting or is unable to take the food to the mouth because it is shaking
sir.
a lot. Is it due to incoordination or something else?
It
You're
is
not-
due to incoordination, sir. There is no stiffness or there is no
Due to
other.
incoordination. So, great. So the patient started with cerebellar ataxia, and then the ataxia has now extended to the upper limb. It is very simple.
Yes, sir. Yes,
So
sir.
extended to the upper limb, and then giving rise to all the difficulties of activities of daily living. Right.
Yes, sir.
So this is going on for, it has further progressed.
Yes,
Why
sir.
did you bring the word freezing episode? We are now on the track of cerebellar problem. Why did you suddenly
sir.
bring freezing episode? Because you have
Sir,
observed something.
That the slowness to rule out other causes for slowness, so like Parkinson's features, extrapyramidal symptoms. So we need to ask all this history. So,
No, that's not correct. When we have already said he has got gait ataxia, ataxia is different. Parkinson
Yes,
is
sir.
different. Parkinson would have been a different story altogether. So if the
Yes, sir.
patient's problem is analyzed, there is no need to do this freezing episode unless what happens is sometimes after the history, we examine the patient, there is something different in the examination, then we come back and ask more questions at that time. So if you have found something extrapyramidal, then this
Yes, sir.
particular line is valid. Otherwise, in
Yes, sir.
cerebellar problem, freezing doesn't come into the picture.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Now we said no history of stiffening of limbs. Means what? Where do you get this
Sir,
stiffening of limbs?
Sir, in spasticity, we can get stiffening of limbs, sir. The other thing in the any lower motor neuron twitchings or fasciculations, and other thing is rigidity, sir. Extrapyramidal symptoms also we can get stiffening of limbs. So that is the reason I want to elicit. So that's why I asked.
You should be on the correct track. Slide number 1, gait imbalance.
Yes, sir.
Difficulty in walking due to gait imbalance, and because the patient had no sensory problem like wash basin phenomena and all that, we presumed that it is a cerebellar ataxia. So we are on the track of ataxia cerebellar. And now upper limbs are also affected. Ataxia, upper limbs. Okay.
Yes.
Now, when
Yes.
we have already said the problem is ataxia, not motor weakness, the question of UMN or LMN doesn't come. You understand
Yes.
how the
Yes, sir.
analysis has to be? Step 1 is what is the difficulty in walking? If you say at that time difficulty in walking is due to motor weakness, then we say, is it a UMN or LMN? Does he have stiffness? Is there any evidence of twitching and LMN? Now we are
Yes,
not
sir.
at all on the track of motor weakness. So this particular sentence here is not
Yes.
in sync with the
Correct.
patient's problem. You understand?
Okay, sir. Yes.
Okay, so at this point of time, all I can say is, okay, he has cerebellar problem, and he has also got cerebellar problem in the right upper limb. You have not clarified whether left upper
Yes,
limb
sir.
also he has got cerebellar problem, like drinking water with the left hand. Does it shake and is not able to drink? We don't know. But I'll take it that drinking with the left hand probably he has got bilateral
In both limbs.
upper limb involvement cerebellar.
Mm.
So it started as lower limb. 2 months later,
Yes, sir.
it
Both
started
limbs.
as the upper limb. Okay, go
Yes,
ahead.
sir. Progress. Yes, sir.
Now, if I can interrupt here, so having made a
6 months
diagnosis of
later, he
cerebellar,
start. Yes, sir.
okay, now let me ask you that question after this slide. Okay, 6 months later,
Yes, sir. Cerebellar.
6 months later, what happened?
6 months later, he had history of speech disturbances, sir. That is since 8 months, which is insidious in onset, slowly progressive. He started having difficulty in articulating few words. It's like progress to slurring of speech. There is no difficulty in understanding the instructions given to him, and he responds appropriately to the given comments, sir.
Very good.
Only problem is articulating few
what
words.
does this mean? You heard last time the speech and language. So what does this mean now?
Dysarthria, sir.
Dysarthria. So now what is the dysarthria due to? I said
Dysarthria.
dysarthria. Ask who is your friend. I'll tell you who you are. So this dysarthria is due to what?
Yes. Cerebellar
We are on
dysarthria,
the
sir.
track of cerebellum, isn't it?
Sir.
Slide 1 is ataxia
Yes, sir.
cerebellar. Slide 2, upper limb cerebellar. Now it has further gone up lower limbs, upper limbs, and then now it has gone to speech, isn't it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It only further confirms that the disease is progressive, gradually involving lower limbs, upper limbs, and now it has involved the speech. Why this cannot be dysphasia? Why this cannot be dysphasia?
Sir,
Why do you say dysarthria?
sir, because the patient is understanding, comprehension is intact. Hello?
Yeah, tell me.
Sir, comprehension is intact, sir. He's understanding everything. He's able to speak, but the problem is in articulating the words, he's having problems.
Okay. Now I will just show my.
So we can rule out aphasia components.
Right. You are right. So
Yes.
I'll just share my. You can go off your slide now. As I said, the first difficulty in walking. We never said there is a motor weakness. We never said there is a stiffness. So all those spasticity, fasciculation would come into picture. We are on to the track of incoordination. In that you have already said it is cerebellar. And we have ruled out sensory, we said cerebellar, right? Now, last time I just sort of looking back into what I have taught to you. So why the language is different, speech is different. According to you, the patient has reception, listening part. We do not know about reading. You should have asked the question whether he is able to read a newspaper and understand, or
Sir,
whether it
he's
is,
able to.
yes.
He's able to read and understand, sir.
That you should not, you should have mentioned there, because language
Okay,
has
sir.
4 components. So whenever a person has difficulty in talking, immediately you should check talking and writing, listening and reading. So
Okay,
talking,
sir.
yes, he is able to talk, express himself properly, but pronunciation is not correct. Writing, you have not said whether he was able to write.
Sir, he's not so much educated, only sign and everything he can put.
So
That he's able to
he's
do
not
his
used
studies.
accustomed to write. Okay, and he's able to
Yes, sir.
understand, and reading is able to do newspapers, right?
Yes, sir.
So this is
Yes,
a
sir.
dysarthria problem, and as I said, the articulation requires so many muscles here, and the articulation problem can be UMN, LMN, myopathy, all this. So if you go back to this whole slide, the patient has got a cerebellar ataxia, or we are on that track. So the common sense says his difficulty in speech and articulation is part of the cerebellar disease, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now you can take over.
8 months later, patient started having history of urinary disturbances, that is in 6 months, in the form of urgency and increased frequency of micturition, sir.
Now,
He says that
8
he
months
gives.
later, that means from the time of his illness which started 8 months later, that means you have seen him 14 months later, that is for the last 6 months. That's what you mean, right? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Urgency and frequency.
Increased frequency of micturition, sir. He
What
also
is the
gave
di-
history of
what is the
inability
difference
to hold the
between-
urine for long time. And
What is the difference between frequency and
sir,
urgency and urge incontinence?
sir, urgency is patient is unable to hold the urine, and so he has to void immediately. Frequency is he frequently goes because there will be sensation of urine still retention, and urge incontinence is patient feels the urge to pass urine, sir, because of the retention of the bladder.
The first thing that happens is frequency. Because
Yes, sir.
now, okay, what does this frequency, urgency, urge incontinence means? What type of neurogenic bladder it is?
Sir, UMN bladder, sir.
UMN bladder. Like
Yes.
the reflexes are very brisk in UMN. Similarly, the bladder
Yes,
reflexes are also very brisk. With a small quantity of urine, the bladder start contracting. So when it start contracting, the patient feels a need to pass urine. So he, instead of 4 times a day, he may go 8 times a day. That is called as frequency. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So frequency can be commonly due to urinary tract infection, but in urological parlance, it is a UMN lesion. This next step is that there is a urge to pass urine, but there is no time. So what happens is there is a urgency. So with the urgency, he rushes to the toilet. See, earlier what happened, frequency, you feel like he feels like passing urine, but he can postpone by 10 minutes or so. Frequency. Then urgency is it is urgent. So he has to, as soon as he gets a sensation, he has to rush to the washroom. The third step is urge incontinence. The moment there is a feeling of passing urine, it doesn't give time. Immediately the bladder contracts, and so he wets his clothes. That is called as a urge incontinence. You understand?
Yes, sir.
Early UMN is frequency. A little later UMN is urgency. The further UMN lesion is urge incontinence. So this patient has, from the point of view of the neurological causes of urgency and all that, he has a urge incontinence due to UMN lesion. So now we have been talking about cerebellum, cerebellar gait ataxia, cerebellar upper limb, cerebellar dysarthria, and suddenly there is a UMN component coming in, because this does not come due to cerebellar disease, isn't it? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'll
Yes,
show
sir.
you one more slide. I'll show you. Will you please go off? Now you can see that frequency, urgency. This I have told you in the bladder, urogenic bladder. The commonest
Yes, sir.
cause are anxiety. Like most of us, before we go on the stage and give a performance, we go to the bathroom and come because of the anxiety, excessive water intake, all causes of polyuria, pathological cystitis, any irritation of the bladder like stone and all. Now, because we are on to the track of neurological problem, we are talking of urgency, precipitancy, and urge incontinence. It is called as a sudden, compelling desire to urinate and difficulty in postponing urination. That is called as a urge incontinence. It is sudden. There is a compelling desire to urinate and difficulty to postpone. Now, it should be differentiated from genuine stress incontinence. How do you differentiate UMN lesion from genuine stress incontinence? Hello?
Yes, sir.
How do you differentiate
Yes, sir.
an urge incontinence due to stress urge incontinence from UMN urge incontinence?
Sir, if patient coughs or if patient has any intra-abdominal pressure, as you mentioned in the slide, then it is genuine stress incontinence. If there is any detrusor muscle instability, that is myogenic, or any hyperreflexia like UMN bladder, then urge incontinence.
So that is, the incontinence occurs only when there is a raised intra-abdominal pressure. Only when there is a raised intra-abdominal pressure which presses on the bladder, which is nearly full, the patient will have some dribbling of urine. Whereas in UMN, whether he is lying down or sitting or just standing, it can have an urge incontinence. Whereas in genuine stress incontinence, there should be not mental stress. It is an increased intra-abdominal pressure, which normally happens in coughing and sneezing and straining. These are the conditions where the patient will have the problem. So the classification of neurogenic bladder is a hypertonic, hyperreflexive bladder. That's what is happening. But remember, there are two types of them. One is a hyperreflexive bladder with coordinated sphincters. This is just I am trying to refurbish the memories for you. This next stage is hyperreflexive bladder without coordination of sphincter. Can you recollect what is the difference between the two?
Hyper.
Both have urge incontinence.
Yes.
The management is totally different. With coordinated sphincter, when the bladder contracts, the sphincter opens. That is a normal coordination. So whenever the bladder contracts, the sphincter open. So there is no residual urine. Very important. Whereas when the bladder contracts, the sphincter does not open. The patient may leak a little urine, but there is a residual urine. So once there is a residual urine of more than 100 ml, no pharmacological treatment is feasible. Then they have to go for intermittent self-catheterization. So what is important is, whenever you diagnose a UMN bladder, like in this patient, frequency, urgency, urge incontinence, the most important is to do an ultrasound of the abdomen and look for residual urine. If you find there is less than 50 ml residual urine, you can manage with medical treatment, pharmacological treatment. But if you find the patient has more than 100 ml urine, that means there is an incoordination between the bladder and sphincter, and the only way is to have a self-intermittent catheterization. Otherwise, the back pressure will continue to grow and causes renal failure. You understand this, please?
Yes, sir.
Okay, this you are going to tell us the bladder afterwards. Okay, right. I think you can.
Okay, sir. There is no history of loss of bladder sensation, no history or suggestive of element bladder, and but there is history of erectile dysfunction since 4 months, sir.
What
And no
is this?
history of suggestive of a
What is this milky urine? I don't understand.
retrograde ejaculation, sir. I mean,
Pardon?
retrograde ejaculation, sir.
Okay, okay.
Yes, sir.
So to recollect, this patient had a difficulty in walking, which is due to ataxia, lower limb problem. Then he had difficulty in the
Yes, sir.
upper limb function. So the cerebellum has gone to upper limbs. Then he had a speech problem. Then the patient has got cerebellar dysfunction in the upper limbs. Now, at that point of time, how will you investigate before the bladder came into picture? Suppose you have seen this patient at that time, say 6 months after the
Yes,
onset
sir.
of illness.
Hmm.
What will you do at that time? Because that is what is important. To pass an examination, the
Yes, sir.
full-blown picture is okay. But in practice, at that stage also, you will have to make a attempt for a diagnosis. So what will you do at that time? You have examined the patient.
Yes, sir.
Patient has got cerebellar features, which we thought of in the history. You have confirmed it on
Yes, sir.
clinical examination. What will you do?
Yes, sir. Sir, MRI brain to look for posterior to posterior circulations.
What do you mean by posterior circulation? For what? Posterior circulation means what? You are talking about a cerebrovascular accident?
But here there is no motor weakness or anything, sir. So
No, madam. For a stroke, the story is
yes,
too
sir.
long, isn't it? MR brain
Yes, sir.
is good, but
Any
don't say
degen-
MR brain for posterior circulation. Posterior circulation is a cerebrovascular picture. We are not talking about
Yes, sir.
any type of
Yes, sir.
cerebrovascular disease which is going on for 8 months at that stage. So
Yes,
why
sir.
are you doing an MR brain?
Any degenerative changes
Why
to look for
degenerate?
any degenerative changes, sir,
At 8 months of story,
or atrophic changes.
degeneration, atrophy, both are same. You are looking for a treatable condition,
Yes, sir.
cerebellar tumor. You are doing an MR brain
Hmm.
with 8 months history. We will not think of degenerative disease. First, we'll think of a
Yes, sir.
space occupying lesion. There may be a tumor in the cerebellum
Hmm.
which is causing the cerebellar
Okay,
features.
sir.
Okay, not degeneration
Yes, sir.
at that stage.
Yes, sir.
This is the problem. What happens is when you
Okay,
know the diagnosis, the thinking gets blocked. It becomes a straight line. My idea of taking class is what
Yes,
do you do at that stage? Okay, you have done a MR brain. MR brain is normal. So what do you do now?
yes.
What do you do now? You are looking for in the MR brain for some lesion there. There is no lesion.
Yes, sir.
And even if it shows cerebellar atrophy, I will not buy it. 8 months history is not cerebellar atrophy. I would like
Yes.
to rule out some more treatable conditions. So how do you proceed? Nothing?
Mhm.
Anybody?
Um,
So what are the other conditions? There are plenty of long list of treatable conditions. Drug induced, all sorts of endocrine dysfunction, metabolic dysfunction, toxic conditions. You go back and read Ataxia in my book
Yes.
and also in the
Yes, sir.
slide which I have showed you. Go back and read the causes of
Yes, sir.
cerebellar ataxia. If the cerebellar ataxia or cerebellar features are one-sided, then it is a structural lesion in the cerebellum. If the cerebellar problem is bilateral symmetrical, either it is a systemic cause or it is a degenerative cause. Let me repeat once again.
Yes,
If the
sir.
cerebellar features are unilateral, you can hear. Okay, now I am going very slow because I want you to learn how to approach a clinical urological case. Not the end of the story 2 years later, final diagnosis. Now at this stage, where the patient has over a period of 6 to 8 months, pure cerebellar feature historically, You examine the patient, he has got bilateral cerebellar dysfunction, lower limb, upper limb, and speech. Now, how do we go about it? So, somebody has already said vitamin B12. I'm very happy. One of the students has put in the chat B12. So, please, what you have to do in clinical practice is okay, this is bilateral cerebellar problem. Then a MR brain, which everybody will do. MR brain is normal. So then you go back and look at the treatable cerebellar dysfunction, either from any book or in my book if it is there. It is there, not if it is there. And this is the slide which I had showed you in the ataxia. Look at the long list of treatable conditions. Long list of treatable conditions. So that is what you should do at that stage. Okay, last slide you showed the patient has a bladder involvement, UMN type bladder. So it could be now,
Yes, sir.
in addition to the cerebellar system, the patient has an upper motor neuron lesion somewhere in the spinal cord probably or in the brain. But then he had erectile dysfunction also. So these two put together, the lesion may be in the autonomic nervous system instead of spinal cord, then erectile dysfunction in a different way. So somebody, one of the participants here had put in the chat autonomic dysfunction. I'm very happy. So that's what I want. This particular class is meant for interaction. So now we know that cerebellar along with autonomic dysfunction at this stage. Now we proceed further. Now this particular
Sir, no other symptom.
point, autonomic dysfunction with cerebellar gives a clue that we are dealing with a degenerative disease. We are dealing with a degenerative disease because they are at a different anatomical level. Cerebellar dysfunction is in the cerebellum. Autonomic dysfunction is at the lower level of the autonomic nervous system. It is in the paraspinal area. So with two lesions going on for more than 8 to 10 months, probably we are dealing with a degenerative disease. Right.
Yes. Sir, no other symptoms suggestive of autonomic dysfunction like dizziness on getting up from bed after hot bath or after hot meals. Change in color of there is no change in color of extremities on cold exposure or abdominal sweating or piloerection. No history of any palpitations, sleep disturbances. There's no history.
We'll go to the examination.
Yes, sir. And one significant histories is known diabetic and hypertensive since 12 years on treatment.
So he has both diabetes and hypertension.
And
so
yes,
the autonomic dysfunction can be due to diabetes. Now cerebellar dysfunction,
diabetes also.
progressive. Pardon? Is diabetes related to progressive cerebellar dysfunction? As I know, it's not. It can cause a stroke.
No, sir.
It can cause a vitamin B12 deficiency.
Yes, sir.
But diabetes per se, no. So the autonomic dysfunction, you have to split diabetic
Yes.
autonomic neuropathy. But when do you diagnose diabetic autonomic neuropathy? When he has somatic neuropathy.
Yes, sir.
Invariably, autonomic neuropathy is an advanced stage of neuropathy where the patient has tingling, numbness, burning paresthesia, sensory ataxia, and then autonomic dysfunction. Then we call
Yes,
it
sir.
diabetic somatosensory neuropathy and autonomic. If patient does not have a peripheral neuropathy as of now from the history, purely autonomic dysfunction, it doesn't look like it is a diabetic. Okay, now we are telling the summary part. So
Yes,
we
sir.
have to summarize the whole story: slow progressive ataxia cerebellar, lower limb, upper limb speech, and then came the erectile disturbance, urinary disturbances, autonomic dysfunction. Now the question is diabetes, hypertension related to this? Hypertension obviously not, because it can produce a stroke. It cannot produce a slow progressive disease. Diabetes definitely autonomic dysfunction, but after the somatic dysfunction, sensory dysfunction. Until now in the history, there was no such thing like tingling, numbness, paresthesia. So it is unlikely. We cannot rule out, but it is unlikely. Okay. So what
Yes,
do you
sir.
want to do in general examination?
On general examination,
Confirm
yes.
that the patient has cerebellar features. Now let us see what did you find.
Yes, sir. I felt like patient is having little expressionless face, sir, and his supine blood pressure is 140/90, standing blood pressure is 120/80. Rest of the vitals were normal, sir.
So what does this mask-like
And coming to
faces mean? 1 minute. Mask-like faces means what?
yes,
What does
so
it?
usually we'll get in um, Parkinson's, sir.
Extrapyramidal disorder, where there is a rigidity
Yes,
of the
sir.
facial
Except,
muscles. See, Parkinson's is as rigidity, right?
hmm.
So rigidity of the facial muscles
Yes, sir.
causes expressionless face. So now in the examination,
Yes, sir.
you have brought a new system into the picture. That is the extrapyramidal disease in the form of facial rigidity, facial muscles rigidity. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Carry
Shall I
on.
proceed, sir?
So that is something which is unexpected from the
Yes, sir.
history. I was thinking all the time cerebellum
Yes, sir.
plus autonomic dysfunction. Now examination is totally bowled out, right?
Yes, sir. Coming to higher mental functions, patient was conscious, coherent, cooperative, oriented to time place person, memory is intact, no emotional incontinence. MMS is 30/30. Speech examination, fluency is intact, only articulation is impaired, and other components were intact. Sir. Writing cannot be assessed because the education status of the patient is only third or fourth standard.
Okay, patient has a dysarthria. You have very nicely put up saying that all these are intact. Now, 1 minute, go back. Now, what is this dysarthria? See,
Yes,
we
sir.
were all the time cerebellum. Now, suddenly you brought into picture the patient has a mask-like faces. Now, clinically, when you
Yes,
see a
sir.
patient with two systems involvement, you should know which is a dominant one,
Yes, sir.
which is causing a dysfunction for the patient. Not
Yes,
how
sir.
much physical sign you have elicited.
Yes, sir.
Dysarthria, is it cerebellar or is it extrapyramidal? Which is the dominant factor?
Yes, sir.
What
Sir,
do
the patient is stressing on the words, sir. Patient is putting stress on each word, and
what is your
there
impression?
is difficulty in articulation, sir.
Both are articulation only. Both are
It is more,
dysarthria only. Is
yes,
it a
sir.
slow mumbling where you hardly are able to hear the patient? That is a Parkinson-like extrapyramidal rigidity, or is it a loud but very
Yes, sir.
staggering speech, staccato speech like?
It, it
I'm
is
not sure.
like staggering speech, sir. Like
So you think
staccato
the
speech.
articulation dysarthria is due to cerebellar? Okay, fine. Next.
Cerebellar, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
All the cranial nerves were intact, sir. On motor system examination, bulk is normal in all four limbs, no wasting present. Tone, there is hypertonia in all four limbs, sir. I felt like cogwheel rigidity in left more than right. Power is 5/5 in all four limbs. DTRs were normal, sir, except for ankle jerk, it is diminished, +1 on both sides. Superficial reflexes intact, sensory system intact. Romberg's negative, sir. Cortical sensations were intact.
So what is hypertonia means what? Is a UMN? Is it a rigidity? Increased tone happens in UMN lesions,
Sir,
spasticity.
it is most,
Increased tone also happens in rigidity
yes, sir.
extrapyramidal.
Yes, sir.
So this is what you are saying, rigidity.
Yes, sir.
Am I right? So he
Yes,
has
sir.
got extrapyramidal features. Probably speech also, we don't know, but according to it's more cerebellar. But definitely all four
Yes.
limbs he has got extrapyramidal features. Now he has got a power of 5/5.
Yes, sir.
Go back to the history. The patient's problem is difficulty in walking
Yes, sir.
and frequent falls, to avoid which he is using a walking stick. With 5/5 power, what is the
Yes, sir.
cause of his imbalance? Is it cerebellar? Is it
Yes, sir.
extrapyramidal? On examination, what did you find?
Sir, it is mostly cerebellar. It is cerebellar, sir. It is not like
Okay, so a motor system exam you found rigidity, but is the gate is you have not come to the
yes, sir.
gate anyway. Let us see the gate part. Now, most
Uh,
important is what about
yes, sir.
coordination? You are coming to the coordination next.
Coordination. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I will just put it
Show me the next slide, coordination.
here, sir. Yes, sir. Cerebral coordination, bilateral incoordination is present, sir. Finger nose test and finger test, all were abnormal.
So there are cerebellar signs, there are extrapyramidal signs. And gait is wide base, that means cerebellar.
Yes, sir.
But at the same time, you are saying short
Yes, sir.
steps. Now, how can it be both?
Slow steps. Slow steps he's taking, sir. That's why I mentioned short shuffling, but he's taking slow steps. Can we mention or not? I don't know, but
No, on clinical examination, is it a wide based gait? Wide based can be slow steps. Steps is different, base is different.
yes, sir.
Is it a wide based gait
Yes, sir.
walking
Slow
slowly,
steps, sir. It is.
or is it a very close shuffling gait? So, according to you, it is a wide
Sir,
based.
it is slow steps.
No, not shuffling. It cannot be both.
Wide based, sir.
No. So, from this,
Yes, sir.
it looks that the patient has both extrapyramidal and cerebellar features. Then what you have to do is, what is the most prominent one causing disability in the patient? Not prominent in terms of physical sign. You understand?
Yes, sir. Yes,
So
sir.
go back. Why has the patient come to me? Difficulty in walking, difficulty to mix food, difficulty to talk. Now, is it cerebellar or is it extrapyramidal?
Yes, sir.
Both are there. Cerebellar is there,
Yes,
extrapyramidal
sir.
is there, but on your examination, which one is the causing the disturbance? Which one is causing
Sir,
disturbance?
it is on my examination. So cerebellar is causing more disturbance than
Cerebellar
extrapyramidal
is
symptoms, sir.
responsible for his disability. That is a very, very
Yes, sir.
important clinical point. Whenever the patient has multi-system involvement, to address the treatment part, you should know what is the main problem for which he has come to me and what is that due to. If a patient has come for paraparesis and difficulty in walking due to spasticity, we have antispastic drugs. If it is due to motor weakness,
Yes, sir.
only physiotherapy will help. You understand? So here also, if it is a cerebellar
Yes, sir.
problem, we don't have any medicines for that. But if it is extrapyramidal, certainly we have medicines to reduce the extrapyramidal problem at least for a short while. Okay, so that is very important. Whenever
Yes, sir.
you come to see 2 or 3 system involvement, cerebellar system, extrapyramidal, upper motor neuron, try to see which is most devastating for the patient. Okay, let's go next.
Okay, sir.
Next slide.
One second.
Please don't put any lines on this, please. Can we go to the next slide?
Provisional diagnosis.
Right.
Yes, sir. Coming to provisional diagnosis, neurodeficit is there is extrapyramidal signs, cogwheel rigidity in all 4 limbs, cerebellar dysarthria, gait ataxia, it's like most like drunken gait, and bladder involvement. Anatomical substrates will be extrapyramidal tracts, cerebellar, autonomic nervous system involvement. Pathological diagnosis is degenerative. Etiological diagnosis is, could be atypical Parkinsonism, most likely cerebellar predominant MSA variant.
Okay, now step 1 is a neurological deficit. Most of you will repeat the physical findings. That is not the neurological deficit. Neurological deficit, you have to
Yes.
identify the system involvement. So what you have to do is neurological deficit, extrapyramidal disorder affecting the all 4 limbs and speech. Or if you say extrapyramidal disorder, now because the patient has extrapyramidal and cerebellar, the first one is the one which is causing the patient's the problem. Now I understand from your discussion, the patient's difficulty in walking, talking is due to cerebellar dysfunction. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
So The neurological deficit is neither of them. The neurological deficit number 1 is bilateral cerebellar dysfunction, bracket ataxia dysarthria. Number 2, extrapyramidal dysfunction as a physical sign or marginally contributing to patient's problem. Number 3, autonomic dysfunction, bladder and erectile dysfunction. That is how you should write neurological deficit. Not most of you do the same thing.
Yes, sir.
Keep repeating the physical findings. After physical findings, which system is affected? So here cerebellar, extrapyramidal, autonomic. Now when you come to anatomical diagnosis, where is
Yes, sir.
cerebellar lesion, where is extrapyramidal lesion, and where is autonomic system lesion? These three should come here.
Okay, sir.
In terms of severity,
Okay, sir.
cerebellar, extrapyramidal, then autonomic. These three should come here. Now tell me, where is the lesion for cerebellar anatomical diagnosis? Because that is where we are going to do investigation. Where is the lesion in the cerebellum?
Yes,
Cerebellar, is it cerebellum, hemisphere, right, left, both, or its connections in the brainstem? Okay, it is bilateral, isn't it? He has got
Yes,
bilateral
sir.
cerebellar feature.
Bilateral.
Right?
So most likely.
Is it
Yes, sir.
bilateral cerebellar
Yes, sir.
features? Yeah. So bilateral cerebellar features can be bilateral
Bilaterals.
cerebellar hemispheres or its connections in the brainstem. Now, how do we know connections in the brainstem localization? Give me a friend who is in the brainstem. There is no cranial
Associated symptoms.
Pardon?
Any cranial nerve dysfunction.
There is no cranial nerve dysfunction. So let us put it both. Either it is
Yes, sir.
hemisphere, cerebellar, or in the brainstem. Now, when you come to extrapyramidal, where is the lesion? Quick.
It can be in basal ganglia, sir.
Why do you say can be in the basal ganglia? It is basal ganglia.
It is basal ganglia.
It is basal ganglia lesion. If he has got bilateral extrapyramidal, it is bilateral basal ganglia. Okay. So now you see cerebellar hemispheres is on either side of the neuraxis. Now the Parkinson is in the neuraxis, that is in the center, basal ganglia. So common sense says that the cerebellar is also because of its connections in the brainstem. So that anatomically you'll see the basal ganglia which comes down and then brainstem with cerebellar connections. Understand? And then autonomic nervous system.
Yes, sir.
Totally different in the parasympathetic, or in this case sympathetic ganglia, that is a thoracolumbar outflow. So there are three anatomical localizations: A, basal ganglia; B, likely connections in the brainstem, or it can still be in the cerebellar hemispheres on both sides. Third anatomical localization is the thoracolumbar sympathetic outflow. So there are three anatomical localizations, which means there is no question of space occupying lesion. You understand the importance of going step by step.
Yes, sir.
Once you saw that
Yes,
everything is anatomical localization posterior fossa, then you should diligently go for a structural lesion. It may be a vascular anomaly, it may be a tumor, it may be demyelination, any of them.
Yes, sir.
But here with three basal ganglia, cerebellar connections or cerebellar hemisphere, and down below thoracolumbar outflow. So there is no question of a single anatomical level. And so now with three things together, a different anatomical level, is there anything systemic causes or toxic causes we will have to look into the books to see whether there is any rare cause which is treatable. We all have to go to the book and see that. But most likely it is a degenerative,
yes, sir.
as you very well said, and you have made a good diagnosis also. It is an atypical Parkinson because it is extrapyramidal, but atypical probably because of MSA. Okay, good. Your final diagnosis is very good, but
Yes.
I am interested in the approach at that level. how you people deal with the patient at that level. Okay, now let us have last few
Yes.
slides of yours.
Yes, sir. This is your slide itself. When we suspect Parkinson's syndromes, any of the following in the first 2 years will notice that is symmetrical onset, poor response to L-DOPA, any postural instability with frequent falls to rule out PSP, and dementia, hallucinations, any sudden freezing episodes, autonomic dysfunction, and there will be no tremors
So in this whole
in
thing, what
differentiation
is
of
it that
Parkinson's
is
disease. Like
what
where
is it that is making you to think it is Parkinson syndrome in this list? What are the things this
it is
patient has?
autonomic dysfunction he is having.
Very good. Autonomic
Sir,
dysfunction.
autonomic dysfunction, sir.
Yeah. Autonomic dysfunction. No tremors.
There are no tremors, sir. No
Symmetric
tremors.
onset.
And
Symmetric onset.
symmetric onset, sir.
Tell me the classical symptoms of a idiopathic Parkinson's disease. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yes, sir.
Why don't you tell me?
Sir, rigidity, sir. Bradykinesia,
First
resting
is
tremors, and
unilateral.
postural instability, sir.
First is unilateral. You understand?
Yes, sir. Unilateral.
When it is bilateral,
Asymmetrical. Yes, sir.
when it is bilateral, it is unlikely to be idiopathic. Unilateral, then you said
Yes, sir.
bradykinesia, rigidity, tremors, and excellent response to L-DOPA. That is the typical
L-DOPA,
idiopathic
yes.
Parkinson's disease. When none of these are in sync with each other, then you think of atypical. Okay, what are the atypical Parkinson?
Sir, next slide is up, sir. First one is progressive supranuclear palsy. Second one is multi-system atrophy, two variants, Parkinson's predominant and cerebellar predominant, corticobasal degeneration, dementia with Lewy bodies.
Okay, so these are the 4 types of atypical Parkinson. You have chosen, 1 minute, you have chosen MSA.
Yes, sir.
Go back, MSA. Why did you say MSA? Multi-system. What are the what are the systems to say it is multi-system?
Sir, here basal ganglia is involved, extrapyramidal tracts were involved, and autonomic dysfunction is there. So
And cerebellar.
there are, thoracolumbar and cerebellar.
Multi-system, cerebellar system, extrapyramidal Parkinson, and autonomic dysfunction. So all 3 are affected in this patient. So it is called as a multi-system atrophy. Why it is a atypical Parkinson? Because the patient has Parkinson features, which may be mistaken for idiopathic Parkinson. Okay, next.
Yes, sir. There are 3 variants that we know. MSA-P, that is extrapyramidal features predominant. There will be striatonigral degeneration in that. In cerebellar predominant, there will be olivopontocerebellar atrophy. The other thing is Scheidegger syndrome, sir, where autonomic failure predominates other systems.
So now you see here.
Coming to diagnostic.
No, go back to the previous slide. Now the cerebellar features are due to olivopontocerebellar atrophy. That means olivary nucleus and pontine area is in the brainstem. You understand? So
yes,
the cerebellar features in MSA is due to brainstem connections plus cerebellar hemispheres. So that is the anatomical localization. So what do you think this patient has?
Yes.
Both MSA-P and MSA-C, which one is predominantly affecting his daily activities? The reason is, if it is extrapyramidal, you can try Syndopa. If it is extrapyramidal, you can try Syndopa. If it is cerebellar, is a dysfunction, then there is no specific pharmacological treatment. That is where the importance of clinical assessment to know what is causing the disability. What do you think is the patient's disability in this patient?
Ataxia, sir.
Okay, I think we are running short of
mainly cerebellar ataxia, sir.
Okay, I'll give you another 2 minutes to. So anyway, you have come to a good diagnosis. The patient has MSA, C and MSA P as a add-on, but the main problem is MSA C. Okay, next.
Yes, sir. These are diagnostic categories, sir. A possible MSA, if it is sporadic, progressive, and adult onset of the disease characterized by any Parkinsonism or cerebellar syndrome, at least one feature of autonomic or urogenital dysfunction, and at least one of the other additional features.
So Maitri, can I stop you here because
Coming
I
to
just left 2 minutes. I think the rest of it is all
yes, sir.
way
Yes,
which you can all read up. So we must congratulate Maitri for
yes, sir. Sure, sir.
bringing out this case, which has got a good discussion right from the slide one, slow progressive involvement of multi-system. And she has really done a good job. All of you can go back and read about MSA and varieties. Okay.